Hi, this is Rock. We're going to talk about one of my favorite functions, map. This is a function that solves a lot of problems that you run across if you didn't know you had this function available. We've looked at a lot of functions and they're starting to get a little more complex, but also more powerful. One of the things I'm going to do in this video is do what I tend to need to do when I get a set of data, which is I need to be able to get the data ready before it's useful with these functions. So what I have here is, and this is from Wikipedia, is a list of Nobel Peace Prize laureates from the beginning of when the Peace Prize first was instituted back in 1901. To explore the map function, what I'm going to do is explore how old the person was when they won the Nobel Peace Prize. So to do that, we need to massage our data a little bit before it's ready. If you look here, you can see there's the year that the prize was awarded, and then there's the lifespan of the person. Sometimes the person is still alive, so it has a note when they were born. Sometimes the Peace Prize was given to an organization and not an individual, in which case, in most cases like that, it says when the organization was founded. There are a few that have asterisks that we can just ignore for our experiment today. But in order to calculate the age of the person, we're just going to assume that the person was born on January 1st. Small assumption to make here. But if we start over here with age, we can do a calculation based on when the year of award was and when the birth year was. We're going to have to extract this date from this phrase. If you remember our text after function, we can use that and the text before. So let's try this. I'm going to say equals text after, and I'm going to grab this text and say that the delimiter is the open parentheses. And if I do that, then we've got that, right? And now I want to nest that inside a text before, and then I'll grab this and put a dash. Looks like a dash, not a hyphen. In situations like this, where I'm working on a formula, I'll often pause the formula by putting an apostrophe in front of the equal sign, which turns it into text. I'm going to come over here and I'm just going to copy this because this is what you call an M dash. I'm just going to go ahead and come back here, delete that apostrophe, continue here by pasting that M dash, close those quotes, close the parentheses for my text before, and that gives me 1828. That's the text version of 1828, and I want the number version so that I can do some math with it. In order to get the number version, I'm going to need to type number value as the function that encloses this whole formula. There we go. Now you see how with its being aligned to the right, it's giving me that date. I'm going to copy this all the way down, and you'll see a number of places where this errors out. As I hit Control D to copy that down, a bunch of these did not work. So for the ones that did not work, and again, we're working on the map function, but not yet. We're taking some time to explore how to get the data ready for something like this. Let's do an if statement here. This is what I would typically do, and just work through this list and find general ways to address the error. So I'm going to say if, and we want to do L8, but what do we want to do? We want to address this founded. Whenever it says founded, we're going to give it a different rule to follow. So let's figure out how to tell it that this cell contains the word founded. To do that, what I usually do is the isNumber function. So I'll say isNumber, and then I'm going to say search. It's not the whole content of the cell. The cell doesn't just say founded. It says founded in 1873, and down here it's saying founded in 1891. How do I put together a rule that looks to see that it contains the word founded? If it contains the word founded, treat it with this particular rule we're going to put in. So I'm going to say if isNumber search founded within text L8, close the search, close the number. So if that's the case, I'm going to tell it to go down this if tree. So we have branches off of this if tree here. The first branch is what happens if it's true. So basically, if it finds founded, the word founded in there, then we're going to do the text after founded. And what I'm going to be sure to do is include that space, because there's a space between founded and the 4-digit year date. So I'm going to do that text after founded. But that's not going to be enough, because I need to have the text before this whole thing and the delimiter being the close parentheses. So we can exclude the closed parentheses that would otherwise come after the 1873. See, if I select this text after, oh, we need to find where. Okay, the text is L8. Text after L8, and then the delimiter is founded with a space after it. If I select this, it's not finding it here, but it will when I copy this down. And also when it brings it back, it's again going to bring it back as text. So I need to change this into a number value. So number value of all of this. And then I'm going to close out my if statement with that closing parenthesis. I hit enter. It doesn't really apply here, but when I copy this down to here, you'll see what happens. It brings 1873 into this. So I can bring this all the way down, and it solves several of those, the ones that say founded. It's resolved that issue. The next error that we're getting is one for not awarded due to World War I. We can have a generalization that excludes it if it's got the phrase not awarded. So we can do an if statement in front of this, and I'm going to hit Alt Enter here to give this its own place. Let's see. I'm going to put this if there and just keep these aligned. So what I do when I do these, and again, you have to hit Alt Enter to get the carriage return inside this formula bar. What I do is I tend to line things up so that the if statements, so here's the logical test, and then the value if true, and then the value if false. I like to put those two at the same distance in terms of margin. So I give some margin from the left so that it stays organized. It's easy for me visually to see, okay, here's the if statement and here are its two branches from the if tree. All right, so I've started another branch here, and with this one, I'll have a corresponding one for if this is false. So right now, here's going to be the if statement, the logical test. The value if true is this, and then I need a comma there at the end of that. And then I come down here, and the value if false, I'm going to use the space bar to put my cursor there so that I'm going to have some value here that then is closed by that parenthesis. So my structure is here. Here's the value if false. Here's the value if true. Here's the logical test. I haven't put in the logical test yet. I have the value if true. That's all set to go. Oh, actually, since I'm going to be searching for not awarded, then this whole section should be the false section. So I'm going to take out that comma. This is where I'm going to put my value if true right here. Okay, so here's my value if true. But first, let's start with what is going to be the search here. So I'm going to grab this and paste it here, but instead of searching for founded, I'm going to search for not awarded. So that's the logical test. And it'll be false right now, so that'll go here and execute that component of our code. But in terms of if the value is true, what do I want it to do? This is what I want it to do. If it says not awarded, I just want it to be blank, which is 2 double quotes. So we'll leave the age blank if the award was not awarded that year. All right, let me go ahead and hit enter. And let's take this down to the not awarded section and hit Control D. And it fixed it, took away the error, and just left those blank. So I'm going to take that all the way down, hit Control D. So the next one that is not resolved, the next error, is this one says started. Okay, so this is started during mid-century, mid-17th century. So that would be the we could say 1650. So let me just say, I'm going to manipulate my data here to get an approximation. And that solved that problem. It's not a great practice to manipulate your data, change what it says, but I'm trying to solve a problem here. When you have someone who doesn't have a death date, in this one we've got 1944, born 1944. So we need a new if tree here that says, I'm going to hit Alt-Enter here, and I'm going to come up here and say if, and this one's going to be an is number again. But before I start, I want to just move everything over by this amount. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to paste it here, 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 and here, just to keep everything aligned. And in this case, once I get this logical test put in place, I'm going to want to have the value if true right there, and then the value if false. So this is the value if false, this is the value if true, and here's the logical test. For the logical test, I'm going to take this is number, search again, and in this case, I'm going to search for born. And with that, then what I can do when it finds one that says born, I'm going to have it say number value, text before, and I'm going to have this be the text, and then the closing parentheses, and then I'm going to close that text before, and now I want this whole thing to be a text after, and we'll take that L8 and we'll have the text that it's after be born with a space, and then we will close that text after, and we need to close the number value here, and that gets me, let's see, logical test, value if true, and then this number value, we're not getting a white closing parenthesis here, so I know I'm missing a parenthesis. So let's take a look here. Text after has its 2 green ones. Text before has these 2. Number value is working. Oh, I have this if statement that I introduced this time and I didn't close it out. So I'm going to go ahead and just add that extra closing parenthesis for the if statement. Now when I hit enter and I drag this down, let's check it at the first born, which is down here. And if I'll check that one as well. If I hit Control D, it brings back these dates when they're born. And if I take that all the way down, we have resolved all but the ones that have an asterisk. So let's go ahead and add an if statement that says if L8 equals asterisk, then blank, otherwise. And I'll just leave it there so that I don't have to do all the indenting here for a second. And if I take that and bring that down it has left those blank. So now we have those blank, but all we have here is the year of birth for the ones that apply, or the year of founding for the ones that apply. What we need to do then is have the calculation. So this is the wrong heading. If I say this is actually birth/founding year. All right. So now let's do what we set out at the beginning, which was to see what the age was at award. For this, I'm going to do a map. So here we're finally getting to the map function. Map, and the array that I want is, I actually want two arrays. I want the birth or founding year as one array, and then the second array is this year of the award. What we've done here is we've indicated which two arrays we're going to be using as variables. All right, now we want to introduce a lambda. And this lambda will allow me to introduce parameters and then build a calculation based on those parameters. So the two parameters here, the first one is the birth, and then the second one can be the award. Let's say birth year, and the second one I'm going to say award year. Okay, so these two parameters are pointing back. When you build a map or other functions that use lambda functions, the first ones that you mention in these commas are parameters. If I click in here, or these arrays then become the parameters for the lambda function. So now we've got birth year, which is this one. We've got the award year, which is in K. And now what are we going to do with this? What we're going to do is we're going to say award year minus birth year. And I'm going to close the lambda, close the map. It's going to error on the places that have spaces. And I could have prevented that by, instead of having the space, I could have had a 0, and then it would just give us the year of the award. But let's see what happens. I'm going to hit enter. Yes, so Henry was 73, Frederic was 79, Ellie was 69. So let's fix this with an if error. And we'll say if error, if anything we find here is an error, then let's just make it a blank. And then we say enter, and so you see which ones are blank there. I'm going to reset my filters here. I'm going to go to filter, remove that filter, turn it back on, and now we can look at the youngest person who was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. So in here, you're going to see that these younger ones, if we look at these, it has to do with organizations that were founded. What I could do is exclude from my filter anything that said founded. So I could say does not contain founded. Take those out of the equation, and then when I look at this, there's still a 2 and there's still these very young ones. Let's look at and see what's going on here. As I look at these, this is an international office for refugees. Okay, so it didn't last very long, which is why it doesn't have a founded date. It gives the span of the years that that organization existed. This person was only 32 when granted the Nobel Peace Prize, and this person was only 32 as well. I think with this one, this date might be wrong. 497. Oh, wow. Malala. No, that is Malala. That's Malala. She won the Peace Prize at 17. So that's really amazing. Really amazing, these other people who have done so much when they were so young. So that is the map function. And next we'll be looking at let, which is the most important function I can teach you. So don't miss that one. See you then.